Every now and then I get an email and the subject line just grabs me and almost like a punch in the gut. And so I had one of those this week and I want to talk about it with you because I think it could really help you as you're moving forward if we think about this in the right way. So let's jump in.
Welcome to the Course Creators HQ podcast, helping you navigate the latest techniques for creating and marketing online courses. And now, here is your host, Julie Hood.
Oh my goodness. So this subject line, I can't wait to get into it with you because it has shifted a perspective for me and I hope it does the same for you. But before I do that, I did want to give you a quick update. So June the 2nd through the 5th of 2023, which is coming up actually in just a couple weeks, we're going to do the 24-hour Course Creator Intensive over the weekend. So we'll have a few hours on Friday, work Saturday and Sunday, and then a few more hours on Monday to get the 24 hours in. So if you have been having create a course on your to-do list forever and you want to just finally get that content together and really sit down and focus, if that's the way you like to work, where you just sit down and crank something out, come join us for the weekend. It is going to be a pretty intensive weekend of work, but I think you'll be so happy on the other end that you put it in and you're able to pull together your content. So I'll put the link in the show notes at coursecreatorshq.com/145/145. I'll put the link in there so you can come check it out. Come join us for the weekend. I'm excited. It's one of the most productive weekends of the year for a lot of my folks. So looking forward to having you. That's June the 2nd through the 5th of 2023 if you happen to be listening to this replay. All right, so let's talk about this incredible subject line that really grabbed my attention this week. I got it from a good friend of mine. His name is Dove Gordon, and he actually pulled this together in a video. So I will also link to the video for you so you can see his full explanation around it. But I won't hold you hostage any longer. The subject line that he sent out was, "Of course, it's not going to work. Of course, it's not going to work." And when I read that, I was like, it felt like almost a sucker punch. What do you mean it's not going to work? What are you talking about? But then as I was going through the concept and watched his video and thought about this a little more, I was like, you know what? If we could adopt this concept from a positive perspective. So let me explain what I mean. I think it could really help take some of the pressure off of us as course creators, as any kind of creator, if we went into something assuming that the first time through is probably not going to work the way we want it to. You know, if that first launch maybe isn't going to be a bazillion-dollar launch, or if the first course we put out isn't going to win us Academy Awards for being so incredible. You know, if we're okay with the first time through, we're going to look at it as a learning experience and less of a succeed or fail experience. And I realized, like, wow, that could really, really take a lot of the concern and a lot of the pressure off of creators to be okay with the first time isn't going to work. So take that thought in for a minute and kind of process, how do you feel if somebody says, of course it's not going to work? What's your first reaction to that? And so I was digging into it a little bit more on my end because it was such a sharp reaction. I was like, where is that coming from? And I realized what it was is the school system, you know, the 18 years of schooling or however many I had, was very, very much focused on, here is this thing that you need to learn and figure out. And if you learn it, Then you're going to take the test and you're going to show us that you know how to do it and it's going to work. You will get a good grade. And that was very much of a cause and effect from our schooling of if you work hard enough, if you study hard enough, if you do what the teacher tells you, then you will get a good grade and it will work. If you can imagine me putting that in air quotes, it will work. And so I was all in on that process, on that concept of if I work hard enough, if I study hard enough, if I set it up correctly and I do everything just right, it will work. But with business, there's one variable that is way, way different than when we were in school, and that is you're somewhat dependent on the other people's reaction and the way your messaging lands or the things that are going on for them or what their budget is this month or how excited they are or how motivated or how dedicated. Like there's so many variables that are now outside of your control that our school system didn't really help us, at least when I was there. Maybe they've gotten better now, but they didn't really help us with that uncertainty. So if you think of what you're doing, let's say your first launch, and you go into it with the low bar of, yeah, this probably isn't going to work, then if you get any sales, that's a success, as opposed to going into it with the, oh, I'm going to create this course and I'll never have to work again. And then you just get disappointed when it's crickets or when there's only a few people that sign up. And the goal then is not so much that it's going to work, is the goal is let me test this and see what does work. Let me see what messages resonate. Let me see what people like, what they jump on, what they get excited about, what they are thrilled to be able to hear from me, what motivates them, what price point they sign up for, or what price point they don't sign up for. How can I use this as a barometer to help me come up with the next thing that I'm going to try? And that is such a completely different mindset. At least for me, I feel much less pressure then. If this is just a test, if this is like me doing a science experiment, then if it flops, it flops, and it has nothing to do with me personally. And it doesn't reflect on, did I work hard enough? Did I do enough? Did I do what I was supposed to do? It has nothing to do with that part of it when it's just a science experiment. It's just a test to see what kind of results can I get and what can I learn about my audience. What can I get inspired to try differently? So that's how I want you to be thinking about this moving forward. Now, there is one practical side of this that I want to make sure that we address, is that sometimes when you are building a business and working on courses or whatever you're doing when you're building your business, coaching, whatever, there is a physical need to make money in order for it to work. So my assignment for you is figure out what that process is going to be for yourself. Like, how long can I go doing tests and trying things out? How can I figure out some quick cash ideas that I can use to make sure I'm bringing in the cash that I need to support my family? So that's one of the bonus lessons that I give out for my courses, is these quick cash ideas, because I recognize, you can't just test forever. There are a certain amount of places where, we need this to work. We need to be able to buy groceries and pay the mortgage. So your homework from today's episode is to figure out two different things. The first one is, what is it that I'm investing and how long can I invest? And let's just say at zero sales, how long can you go and pay for X tools, pay for coaching, like what is your number, so that you know that number, and then hopefully we'll beat that. Like that's the goal, to be way ahead of it. But I always like to use kind of the bottom of the line of what's the worst case scenario is I have X dollars, I can buy this tool and this coaching, and in 4 months I need to be making sales, or in 6 months I need to be making sales. If you need sales tomorrow, then that's a different question, and maybe you need to jump to a different place as far as figuring out how to get the cash in the door tomorrow. Usually employee slash freelancing is the best way to make that happen if that's where you're at. But figuring out what that number is, and then going to the place of, okay, let's say this doesn't work. What am I going to try? And what am I going to try next? How can I use this process of whatever it is I'm doing, whether you're doing podcast guesting, whether you're going to do a challenge, whether you're putting a lead magnet out there to see if it resonates, if you're jumping into some new technique, or you want to try out a new platform, or you're going to try a new tool. What is my test, and what am I going to try to learn from this test? So I do a ton of testing and trying out things. I have my core piece of things that I try to do every single week. You know, this podcast is one of them. I try to make sure I get a podcast out every week. I try to make sure I get an email out every week. I try to do a clubhouse room every week. I have some automatic posting set up so that my social media is always getting new posts on it. Actually, without me having to do a whole lot on that, my social media kind of runs itself. So those core things are always happening to keep the business moving forward. And then it's all the extra things that I'm stepping back and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to try this. Let's see if this works. Let me try this and see if this works. Let me try this new price point, see if this works. Let me try working with this coach and see if this works. And it has been a very challenging way to shift the way that I think, because I was so indoctrinated into, well, if I just learn enough, take enough courses, and do what the experts say, then I'm guaranteed success. And unfortunately, that's not the way it works. and so the reason I'm doing this episode is not to be negative or pessimistic for you. I'm trying really, really hard to be realistic for you, so that when you do get something out there and it does really well, like, woohoo, let's celebrate. Or if it doesn't, that you're okay with that too. And you're not surprised. It's not an unexpected thing if something flops. Even my 7-figure client, they will release a new product and sometimes they flop. Sometimes they only get a few sales. And then sometimes they hit a home run and they get thousands of customers. So it varies so much, and to be able to be okay with that, I think, is one of the big skills of the best entrepreneurs and business owners, is to know how to handle that and be okay with it. So I hope this is helpful if you've been struggling with this a little bit or trying to figure this out. Because the second piece of this is, the more tests that you run, the more things you try, the more likely you are to find the one that's actually perfect for you and your audience. But you have to keep trying, even if it's not working the first time or the 10th time. So I hope this episode is helpful for you. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm really, really trying to be realistic and just give you another way to think about things. So when I got the email from Dove and he said, of course it's not going to work, I was honestly shocked, because what expert tells people it's not going to work? But as I was thinking about it more, I was like, you know what? I think this can take some of the pressure off of us. I think some of this can really help us feel okay when it doesn't work, and excited when it does, and thrilled, and learning along the way. So let me know. I'm so curious if this was helpful or not for you. I'd love to know if you enjoyed this episode, or if you're like, yeah, don't do any more like that, Julie. One of the things I've noticed with doing a podcast is you have to balance it between being a cheerleader and being helpful and realistic, and like giving a good balance of all of those, I think, makes you an even more trusted expert. So maybe there's a way in your field that there's some things that you can balance out and share with your audience. So thanks for listening. Love to have you here. Thanks for the time in your earbuds, on your phone, in your car. I appreciate you listening, and thanks so much. Thanks for following, subscribing in Apple Podcasts. It's those 3 dots up at the top, and then you can follow the podcast or whatever tool that you're using. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you next week, hopefully with something else fun that we can talk about. Have an incredible week.